So something happened on Friday, which was quite something, right? And this is because there's a gentleman who had gone to the court in Meru, and he made an application. And the application was filed by city lawyer Isaiah Mongela, and it was before a judge in Meru. And he was basically saying that, you see, there's a lady called Philomena Mbete Mwilu. She is officially the Deputy Chief Justice, and she is now the Acting Chief Justice of the Republic. Your Honor, Mr. Judge, should this person really be accessing office? Because, you see, there have been issues that have been raised about her integrity. And the judge was like, okay, so, baby, what do you want? So the first thing that I'd like you, Your Honor, to do is issue an order barring her from accessing office. So the judge is like, okay, so here you go. He argues the standard of moral and ethical probity required of the first respondent, that is the Chief Justice, is that required of a constitutional office holder in respect of whom a criminal prosecution has commenced. The standard requires a constitutional office holder who is the subject of a criminal prosecution either be suspended or step aside and does not discharge the function of the constitutional office until the criminal prosecution is concluded. Now, Justice Frederick Otieno agreed, and this is what the judge said. Basically, the judge said, all right, so I bar Philomena Mwilu from acting and accessing office and acting as acting Chief Justice, acting as Deputy Chief Justice, serving in the Judicial Service Commission, also acting as Ombudsman of the Judiciary, pending determination of this particular matter that has been brought before me. Hey, fire and brimstone has not followed this conversation like that. So there are those that say, now, surely, how can a judge suspend a judge from sitting as a judge? Who gave the judge the judging orders?
But is that not the functions? One of the functions that someone who sits in a court of law as a judge, is that not one of the functions?
Now, the other thing now comes in. To remove a judge, it is clear in the Constitution and in the law, the procedure for removing a judge from office. File a complaint with the Judicial Service Commission. Judicial Service Commission shall investigate briefly, shall recommend to the President to form a commission. A commission shall be formed by the President. Commission shall then investigate this matter and present a report. If a report is for this judge to be removed from office, the JSC shall advise the President shall do the job. There is a clear procedure. We cannot just wake up and decide, you know what, I don't like you, so you step aside. No, follow procedure.
Is that what happened? But none of this has been done yet. The process has not even begun. What essentially has happened is that you have been suspended from your duties for now.
Yep.
Right? You can't carry out these duties for now until this case then can be seen and heard, which is now this process that you're talking about.
And that suspending is also done by the President, according to the law, you know. When the President forms a commission, the President also suspends the judicial officer, whether it's a judge of the Supreme Court or Court of Appeal, High Court. It comes with, I suspend you and I form a tribunal. This tribunal shall investigate these allegations.
So according to what you're saying, then things have not been done right. Somebody cannot just, as you say, wake up out of the blue
Not me. Those who are arguing with this.
Okay, so you had, so this is where you set it. Yeah. As it has been argued,
yes.
You can't just wake up and say that, look, we find that there's a problem here. There's cause for these individuals to step down from this until it is determined. According to the procedure, it must come from the seat of the President.
We've gone a bit far. The office of the Chief Justice and the Deputy, they're not tied together at the hips like the President and the Deputy. Or are they? Because Justice Mwilu didn't just wake up yesterday. She's been Deputy CJ for a long time.
Mm-hmm. Yes.
Why has this not been the issue when she was Deputy CJ? Because it stands to reason that her position as Deputy CJ is what has allowed her to ascend to the position of acting Chief Justice. So why is it now, when she's acting Chief Justice, that this matter has suddenly become so important? Why?
Why do you want the now to be the issue and not the substance of the matter?
It is a substance that I'm wondering. Why now? I'm actually asking a pertinent question.
So you're
Because-
saying the substance has existed all this
Yes.
time?
Why
and
are you operationalizing it now?
And why has this issue never come up?
Why?
It's not that
Now-
it has never come up. The issue has come up.
There's
No.
a big hole where
The judge has acted now, but it's not the first time that this issue has come up.
Look, she's
2
been-
weeks ago, though, a similar case was taken before a different judge, and a different judge came up with a different outcome.
You know,
These issues have been raised.
the cases that she has
Should
had in court,
Justice Mwilu be serving in office?
those questions have been asked, yes.
by virtue of the
So
fact
what
that
were they
there's-
doing? Shopping for a judge who would give a judgment that they favor?
Oh, that's when we look. But look,
No, the question has to be asked, because is that what's happening? Look, the cases against Justice Mwilu arose from a time even before she was in the Court of Appeal. There's a whole slew of them. Okay? Now, examples have been given of cases of impropriety with regards to governors in this country. Okay? I cannot pretend to understand the rule of law when it comes to juxtaposing these situations and applying them in different circumstances. I cannot. But
should it be different though? Should it be different
Principally.
when principally, when you say a governor, for example, has these charges leveled against him or her, and according to the courts, then you should not access your office and you're not allowed to access your office. Should it be different then when it comes to the office of a judge, deputy CJ
Actually,
for that matter?
it shouldn't.
And then they say, okay,
No,
well,
it
hold on
shouldn't.
a minute. You shouldn't actually be
No,
able
it
to
shouldn't.
access your office.
It
So
shouldn't.
what you're saying then is that it should have come before.
yes.
Not now,
Y-
because
y-
there's
yes.
a vacancy in the seat of
yes,
the,
that's what I'm saying. Because from if we were to go by this, it's not something you need to go to court about. It's a damn thing. The moment these things come before the court and these are the accusations leveled against you, then there's the indication that you're tainted. Indication. So until it is proved otherwise, you cannot.
It would appear that somebody has their knickers in a twist, because this individual could essentially rise to the position of CJ, and she has these cases against her, and for that reason, we need to bring it up now.
I
And there
support
has
those
been-
knickers getting into it. Look, you see, it happens the first time. The Director of Public Prosecutions makes a public statement and says, okay, I have received a file from the DCI and these are the allegations against the sitting Deputy Chief Justice. I have therefore ordered the arrest, and the person is arrested and whisked. All right? Then we'll start moving. Court says this was the wrong procedure for the DCI and the DPP to follow. If you have an issue against a sitting judge, especially somebody this high, follow procedure. Go to the Judicial Service Commission. What does the DPP do? DPP goes to the Judicial Service Commission. What does the Honorable Deputy Chief Justice do? Goes to court, as is her right, and files an application and says, you know what, these guys, you should stop them from starting this, commencing this investigation. What? So the wheels have been moving. And you're sitting back there and you're seeing, okay, the wheels are moving. Yeah, the wheels of justice are moving. But as the wheels of justice are moving, the wheels of fate are also moving. And this person who is sitting as the Deputy Chief Justice now starts acting as the head of the judiciary. So I can understand the reason why somebody would decide, hey, wait. I was sitting back and I was waiting for at least something to happen, but this something appears
here
not
we
to be
are,
happening
this
so
thing is
fast. I
hurtling
will go to
towards-
court now.
Yeah, because essentially what's happening is that this thing is hurtling towards the finish line, where this individual could actually be named Chief Justice of the country, and there are cases against her which have yet to be determined.
There are allegations that have been brought.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes, there's a
Questioning
likelihood.
her integrity.
Yes,
That is the bottom
there's a
line.
likelihood that it could happen. But the appointment of the Chief Justice is not that simple. There's a process also that we go through before you can get a Chief Justice.
Yes.
Sure, but by virtue of the fact that her name is in the running in the first place is now what is now bringing a lot of this fever. Yeah, her name is in the basket.
Yes, I know the name is in the basket and I know she's acting, but all the cases of the governors that we speak of, before some were even taken before the Senate and legally removed from their jobs, there are others who've had corruption cases, and it is on the basis of this that Justice Mumbi gave that ruling that we've been debating and wondering, so when
What
does
exactly
it
does this
mean? When does it apply? When does it not apply? A person no less than the DPP even sought further clarification on this particular matter.
Yeah.
All right? It is that clarification that I'm now seeking, because I can understand the wheels of justice moving, and I'm seeing them moving, then I'm wondering, okay, I may be wondering, or my wonderings may be amiss completely, and it may be my conspiratorial mind that is at work here. Yeah. But unfortunately, the timing has to raise questions. Why now? When it could have been done earlier. Eric has brought in the element of fate. Yes, it is true. Fate can conspire for such a thing to happen at such a time. But I personally do not have sufficient reason to support even the concept of fate in this particular issue.
Why not?
Because this is Kenya.
Okay, but at the same time, City, let's give, you can look at it from that angle, the political side of things. Oh, why? So are you trying to block her from, are you trying to impose a new person in your favor? But on the other hand, assume somebody who is as upstanding citizen, tax-paying of this Republic of Kenya, like City Muga, actually sat back and asked himself.
Sorry. Repeat it again. No, this is, please start again. Yes, City Muga, who is an upstanding
citizen of high integrity and pays the taxes on time, has no debt for anyone,
my God, you're
owes nobody.
Aren't you?
Oh, I have debts. Go on. Yes.
And you're paying them.
Of course, I'm paying them.
There you go. So he's not a defaulter of that. Wakes up and asks himself, but why are these things happening? I ought to get my answers. You sit back and you ask yourself, is it okay for this person to actually continue holding office? If I look back, court has said, Lenol Kulal, Samburu, don't access your office because of questions of your integrity have been brought before this court. Court has said, Dharakanithi, governor, do not access office. Homa Bay, no, Migori, governor, do not access office. The others don't access office. And here is somebody who's a state officer still accessing office just because they've gone to court and they've filed applications here and there. Eric, yet issues of integrity have been raised about this person.
Did the governors also not file cases?
They have.
What I'm saying,
office?
No, but that's my point. She shouldn't have accessed office from the time.
In the first place.
Yes.
From the time you even had that suggestion that she was going to court to stop investigations,
she shouldn't have accessed
about
office.
These cases, she shouldn't have accessed office.
Maybe.
That's what I'm saying.
Doesn't it smell as if there's something rotting in the state of Denmark when you hear something like that? That she's gone to court to stop investigations about a case.
You've decided Hamlet should feature in this case this early in the morning.
Yes.
Okay.
Doesn't it? You smell a rat, don't you? That, look, she's stopping these investigations. Why? Is there something that you don't want to be found out?
Anyway,
why? At that point,
let's bring in somebody who understands the constitution and the law and the practice in the corridors of justice to help us unravel this. This is constitutional lawyer Kamotho Waiganjo. Good morning, Kamotho.
Morning. How are you? And how is everybody?
We are well, thank you, sir.
Happy New Year.
Yes. Happy New Year to you.
Kamotho, of course, we'd have wanted to have you on video, but unfortunately, we were not unable to do that this morning. But we are glad that you're joining us on the phone anyway.
Yes.
This matter that happened in Meru, Kamotho, and then the whole hullabaloo and the reactions and counter-reactions from members of the legal fraternity. What is your basic reading of the order that was given by the judge, Patrick Jeremy Otieno?
Yes. All right. I think let's first deal with basics.
Yeah.
Every Kenyan is entitled to go to court and challenge that sort of environment and raise significant constitutional questions that arise in relation to the continued holding of office of the Deputy Chief Justice. I have had opportunity to read the petition. It's very well done and it's very well argued, and it does not seek to remove her from office. It is basically asking the question as to whether she should continue to hold office while there are substantive issues raised before her, against her, both at the JSC and in court, where she was the subject of criminal proceedings. And the petition actually, and I've listened to you the last couple of minutes, and the petition actually relies very, very heavily on the decisions by the courts themselves on what happens to state officers who've been charged with offenses. And so it's not a frivolous case. I think the problem with it is that because of its impact and the fact that what the effect of it is to cripple the Supreme Court and to leave the judicial branch without a substantive head, I think the problem with the decision is that it was made ex parte. I mean, that is the kind of case that you want to make a decision after a hearing. After a hearing, the other parties have made their presentations, and then you make a decision. In fact, in an ideal world, this is the sort of case that you want to actually subject to more than one judge. In an ideal world, because of its implications. And because it is going to be misread as a political hatchet work. But I do think that it raises very, very important questions. The case raises very important questions about who will watch the watchers. If judicial officers can get any kind of orders, from the courts, and you remember the courts also operate sometimes as a trade union, look out for me, I look out for you. Then what happens to the integrity of the courts themselves in terms of how people view the courts, And so I think so. Therefore, it's not. I know the problem is that because there's a political anchor to this, because of the Supreme Court and ratification of the election and the issues around there. But if one was to put that aside for a moment and assume this was not Justice Mwilu, and it is another High Court judge who was charged with another offense, and they also go and get an order and another judge and they continue to run and to continue in office. But every other citizen, every other state officer who is charged is required to go home. It does not help the integrity of the system. And in fact, it is unfortunate that the judge herself, once she was charged, had not actually offered to step aside. Some things actually require, you don't even require to be removed, because if you believe you are innocent, you will be vindicated. In fact, what you should have done is and then process the matter quickly, because that is possible. But if judges get an opportunity, and like every other citizen, to be able to stop proceedings against them, they're able to obtain all manner of orders in their favor, it does not help affirm the integrity of the judicial system. Finally, don't forget that Lady Justice Mwilu is continuing with her operation as a judge by virtue of a court order.
Yep.
It's a court order. She had already been charged, but she stopped the proceedings through a court order. So she shouldn't be surprised that a court order can also be given against her.
Right.
It works both ways. So I'm just saying that it's very important that we also we look at the bigger picture about what this sort of activity does to people's faith in the justice system generally. And it's
Mr. Waiganjo, explain this point to me that I don't really understand. How is it that when it came to the governors, orders such as the one barring them from accessing their offices was put into effect because of the case that had been leveled against them? And then you have a judge of the appeal court, or a judge now as deputy CJ, has a similar case in court, things being leveled against her. How was that not operationalized? I mean, I've understood that she had a court order, but these other governors also had court order. Yes.
No. You see what happens, the governors try to get orders, the same sort of orders that Justice Mwilu was able to get. They tried to get, they were all refused. Each of those judges,
by the same court, no less.
By the same court, The court gave in fact, it was a 3-judge bench decision, I believe, by Justice Mombi, Odunga, and somebody, I can't remember, who made a very substantive ruling and saying once your integrity has been raised, this is not just suspicion. An allegation has been made, but you have actually been charged by an independent office. Remember, the DPP is an independent office.
Yep.
One can talk about politics. At least constitutionally, it's an independent office. Once you have been charged by an independent office, the court said it is only right for the integrity of the constitutional order that you step aside. That is what was applicable to the governors. And people raised issues about, look, this is a very slippery slope we're going down, because if you go there, then it means you're allowing for if you have a wicked DPP, they can basically get rid of you by just charging you. And the minute you're charged, you leave. But if you put that aside and assume that the decisions made in respect of the governors were right and were legally sound, it does not make sense at all that that when it comes to a judicial officer, those same rules don't apply. And the only reason they don't apply is because it's your fellow judges making the decision. At least that's how people would read it. That if it was any other citizen, the rules apply, except they don't apply
but
to
is
judges.
there any other way of reading it, Mr. Waiganjo?
Yes, tell me.
No, I don't know. That's
Those
the way,
arguing against
that's how I would
No,
read
no,
it.
Those
but
arguing here
see,
say, Kamotho, that, there's a constitutionally laid out procedure of removing a judge from office.
hello, stop right there. There's also a constitutional procedure for removing governor. You know, there are. So, you see, by the way, I'm not talking about the merit or otherwise of whether people should. In fact, I don't believe that the sorts of things that happen to the governor should actually be done, because if you have a decision to remove the governor, go through that process. But I am not even there as to whether that is right or wrong. All I'm saying is that if you accept that rule is right for governors, then you must allow, or for any other state officer, when we charge a minister, they step aside. When we charge the PS, they step aside. Automatically. It cannot be that because you as a judge can be able to go to your fellow judges and get an order, that makes it right. What it does, it brings a disrepute to the justice system. It makes it look like this is a scratch my back, a scratch yours, looking out for your brother, and that is not good for the judiciary. And that is not to say that Justice Mwilu is guilty. I mean, and that is not to even say that there would be no political heart at work in trying to remove her. But if you make that argument, then there can also be political heart at work in removing governors. I mean, each of them, Sonko has made that allegation. He has said it's because he's Tanga. Waitito made the same allegation. It's because he's Tanga. Samburu made the same allegation. So each of them have said this is political work. So if you make the argument that the reason you're protecting Justice Mwilu is because it's political heart at work, then the political heart at work was also there for the governor. So all I'm saying is that what is good for the goose surely must be good for duck.
Gander.
Not the gander. We were told
the duck
is good for duck.
Yes.
Listen to the woman rep like
Indeed. Let's take a break at this point. Kamotho Waiganjo, constitutional lawyer, joining us on the line. We are discussing the High Court judge in Meru who gave an order barring Deputy Chief Justice and Acting Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu from accessing office, also from serving in the Judicial Service Commission or as judiciary ombudsperson. Well, one of the comments that came out immediately was from Senator James Orengo, who, of course, we also must remember that he is one of the lawyers that have represented Justice Mwilu in these particular cases. He says, the rule of law is broken and judicial anarchy sets in when judicial processes are used and abused to achieve unlawful outcomes or brazen political objectives. The orders obtained ex parte against CJ Mwilu is an egregious act of judicial terror and oppression. We're discussing the order that was issued by a judge in Meru who asked Deputy Chief Justice Philomena Mwilu to stop acting as CJ, to stop serving as DCJ and a member of the JSC and ombudsman of the judiciary until a case that was filed before the High Court in Meru is heard and determined. Then there's a political side of things. And Kamotho, let's bring in that political angle of things.
Yes.
The timing of this, the people reading in too much into, why here, why go all the way to Meru, why file it in Meru, why does this judge go ahead and give such an order? Does the judge himself have matters that have been raised about his own integrity brought before the JSC? Are they being investigated? Is DCJ Mwilu sitting in those investigations? Let's just unravel that, the politics of this.
Yes. Well, naturally, one would expect in the context of Justice Mwilu's position as acting Chief Justice and in relation to her various scruffles with the system, that obviously people read politics in this situation. So that is not surprising. I think, however, there's an overreaction to the matter. Remember that this is just one judge who has made this decision. That decision can be reviewed by the same judge. That decision can be appealed from. One can go to the Court of Appeal and get appropriate orders to stay that, to strike out that decision. So I don't think that all is lost. This is just a High Court judge. You still have the Court of Appeal. So I don't think that this is the end of the matter. But I think the question I think we need to ask, the more fundamental question we need to ask is, do we believe that the DPP can be used for political purposes and that the DPP is not independent enough from the executive? If we accept that in the affirmative, then we must then apply that argument across the board, so that any case that the DPP raises against someone who holds a political office or who has political, we must assume that there are politics involved. In which case, then we need to read them and read any orders pursuant thereto with the political to wear political glasses to look at the DPP's actions. Now, and that is why I say, you see, if you argue that, and by the way, people raised that issue when the governors came, and let me repeat that.
Yep.
People ask the question: the easiest way now to remove a governor is to charge them with an offense. So if you accept that the DPP is not independent and can be used politically, then that is a very dangerous route to go. And in which case, then the court must then be very careful in allowing the DPP then to obtain the sort of orders he obtained against the governors by stopping them from working, because then it means that you're accepting that the DPP can be used politically. Now, that is why I say, if you make that argument, and it's a legitimate argument, then that argument must apply across the board.
Right.
So let's put that aside. The other one is, where it was a case filed in Meru. I've looked at the parties. It looked like the person who filed the case is a person from Meru. So they're entitled, the High Court is a national court. They're entitled to file it in Meru. It's a fairly well-argued case. Actually, my problem with the case and the judge's decision, like I said, is that he allowed this decision to be made ex parte. You should not make an ex parte decision in this kind of matter, because there's no crisis. It's not like someone is about to be hanged. The DCJ has been in office since she was charged. It's been 6 months. So what is the crisis that you need to resolve? And that is what brings in some suspicion,
But Mr. Waiganjo, does the judge have the leeway legally to make the decision that he had made?
Oh yes. The orders that were made they are made all the time. Conservatory orders are made all the time. But a prudent judge will usually, because the judge has a discretion to make that decision without hearing the other party. But I'm saying, because of the effect of this matter, understanding the politics of that are going to arise, or the political accusations that are going to be made, recognizing that you now cripple the Supreme Court. The Supreme Court essentially cannot now function until they appoint a Chief Justice, because I don't think they are going to appoint the other judges for a while. It means that the Supreme Court, the whatever courts of this country, cannot operate, and we don't know how long the process of appointing the Chief Justice will take.
Right.
Suppose we end up, with this sort of lacuna, and for some reason we had a presidential election or something like that requires the Supreme Court to make a decision. So I'm just saying the implications of this decision are so grave that you don't make a decision like that lightly. And in fact, for me, it is the speed and the light, the quickness with which he made an ex parte decision that would raise issues of suspicion.
So if not taking into consideration, Kamotho, the impact that this would have, just enlighten us a little bit about what kind of impact are we seeing that this decision would have on the courts, and what does that stop today in terms of expansion of justice and things like this?
The Supreme Court basically has no quorum. The minimum quorum for the Supreme Court to sit is 5 judges. It now has 4, which means the Supreme Court is not, and already there are quite a number of pending decisions in the Supreme Court that can now not be processed. So that is your problem, number one. Number two, substantively, there is no provision for enacting Deputy Chief Justice or deputy other than the DCJ, which means now the third arm of government has no head. We have no head of the judiciary. And don't forget that the Chief Justice also plays an administrative role. He's the one who makes decisions about how benches, three judge benches are set up. In the absence of the Chief Justice, there's nobody else to carry out that role, which means you cripple not just the Supreme Court, but significant processes of the delivery of justice. And so what I'm saying, that you don't make a decision with those sorts of implications that lightly. That really is
that brings in the debate then. So it can't be accidental, can it?
Now, I am not in the business of conspiracy theorizing because and the reason I am not is because these sorts of decisions have been made before. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
You see, people being stopped from holding office This has happened before, you know. I mean,
But with all the extenuating circumstances such as this one, how often has this happened?
Precisely. We haven't had a judge who's been charged in court and has been allowed to continue practicing. So maybe we needed a first time. You know, it's not like there's been other judges where this happened and they were not, you know, these did. So there's nothing. I'm just saying that if one were to argue objectively, you would say that even if the judge was technically right, a prudent judge should not have done this. But that is not to assume. You know, judges are also entitled to make mistakes, Eric.
Yeah.
You know, we must not always assume that when people do something, it is because there's an objective and agenda they are pursuing. Judges are entitled to make mistakes, and that's why you have an appellate process.
Kamotho, I must ask you though at this point, could it have waited? If it, like you said, if it waited for 6 months, could it have waited another 6 months? Looking at the repercussions of the decision.
It could have. It could have, and that's what I mean. That this is not the sort, and that's what I'm talking about, an expert decision. This is not the sort of decision you make by yourself after hearing one party. It's not normal. Normally, what judges will do is go serve the other side, let them come. You can still make the final decision in that direction, but at least you will have the benefit of having both parties. You will have considered the implications of what you're doing. People, you know, you've given it a merited thought. But if you rush it like this, then you open yourself to allegations of interference, even if they are not right. You know, they say justice must not just be done; it must also be seen to be done. And when and he may have done justice here, but people don't see because what's a crisis? You know,
that's very true.
So yeah, but I think to finish, Eric, is to say let us discuss the wider question about whether judges are entitled to more protections than the rest of the country because they are the ones who make decisions. And this is not unique to Kenya. I remember in India, the judges even said that, setting up an accountability mechanism in the constitution is interfering with judicial independence. We're talking about the ombudsman. People are saying if you appoint an ombudsman, that is interfering with the judicial independence. Come on, the ombudsman has no powers other than making recommendations to the JSC. How does that interfere with the judiciary independence? You know, so there's an overreaction sometimes about judicial independence, as if judges are angels, you know, as if they don't make mistakes, as if they cannot be involved in matters that are abuse of integrity.
Yeah.
So all I'm saying is that if you want to apply the rule of law, please apply it across the board. Don't apply it,
not in one way and in another. Before we let you go, Kamotho, there's something that you've raised here. I mean, this particular order and how it exposes the judiciary and the service to the citizens in terms of accessing justice. But then also it exposes a lacuna in the law. Suppose something else were to happen to DCJ Mwilu today.
Yeah. Yes, that's true.
What would
there's a problem.
What happens?
There's a problem. Yeah, there's a problem. In an ideal world, and I think that now requires for probably a tweaking of the Judicial Services Act. Of course, if something happened to Justice Mwilu and there's no quorum, there's nothing anyone can do, because you'd have then to appoint a judge. And you cannot.
And who's responsible for that appointment?
The Judicial Service Commission.
Okay.
Which still has a full quorum even in her absence.
Okay.
So the JSC can continue to do its work. I think the question is, should there be somebody who is appointed by the JSC in the meantime to be the head of the judiciary, a sort of acting somebody? I don't know whether you still call him an acting chief justice. I don't know. So there's a
But
problem.
does the president have a say after the Judicial Service Commission have finished their work?
On appointment of the chief justice?
Final appointment.
Yes.
The final appointment is by the president.
Okay.
It's the same situation we had with the judges.
Under 41, yes.
So the president plays a ceremonial role. The Constitution anticipates a fairly ceremonial role, but the fact that you require him to appoint, it means sort of tends to say he can refuse to appoint.
Yeah.
It is clear that anticipation has been thwarted, hasn't it? Because those 41 judges have not been appointed to date.
They've gone to court and gotten orders, and those orders haven't got anywhere. But I think there are fundamental questions about who. I can't remember the Latin maxim of who watches the watchers. When judges go wrong and they can go to court and get orders, what happens? And I think that's a conversation we really need to have.
That's true. Kamotho Waiganjo, thank you very much for joining us today. We wish you a great day.
Asante.
Asante sana.